Hi everybody, Suzanne Barr here, UC for supporting diversity and equity. We are going to go through the assessment 3 flipped collaborate today. So starting with some slides. Okay, so assessment 3 is a team presentation. Okay, so please make sure that you double and triple check when the assessment is due. All the usual penalties do apply. This assessment is worth 30%. It could be quite difficult to be able to grant long extensions for assessment 3. This is because we have to wrap up all the grades and finalise those by the end of the TP, and there's some very strict timelines around that for the university, so it can make it quite difficult to grant long extensions unless there's really extenuating circumstances. It's also very important to your team that you start working on this soon, because it can be stressful for some team members if other team members are falling behind. So it's really important that you work as a team towards that timeline. Now, the word limit on this assessment is the video is 2 minutes per video. It's the usual plus or minus 20%. So 2 minutes is 120 seconds. So if you go 10% of that, you're looking at what, 12 seconds or so. So you can go a little bit over or a little bit under, but just do try to keep it to the 2 minutes. And the word limit for the introduction and conclusion is 500 words, so that's 250 each, intro and conclusion. Again, plus or minus 10%. And the word limit for the rationale is 350 words per rationale. So if you've got 3 rationales, that would be 1,050 words. If you've got 2 rationales, because you've only got 2 people, that would be 700 words total. Okay, the assessment details. So as part of a team, you're required to present a series of teaching resources around a current educational and or social issue and compile them into a presentation. So it's a good opportunity to practice some technical skills that will be very helpful for you in creating resources when you are teaching. Your teamwork in this assessment enables you to investigate and critically reflect upon your and others' bias and stereotypes. So that's the whole idea behind the communication and teamwork. So you can really throw around and go back and forth to discuss any bias or stereotypes that you might have, that you mightn't realise that you have, or others that you identify as part of your research as well. So really being able to discuss and communicate and collaborate around those existing bias and stereotypes, which will just really happen because of upbringings and your culture and society and so on. So don't be afraid to be really reflective and critical around those. So the whole idea is that you're able to come to a place where you share and create diverse and equitable learning approaches. The task is assessing your ability to meet the criteria in the following unit outcomes. Number 1, being able to investigate and critically reflect upon bias and stereotypes within themselves and others. So that's what we were just talking about. And secondly, to design and critically evaluate teaching approaches with respect to their ability to support diverse and equitable learning environments. So that's the whole idea behind the teaching resource that you choose. When you're presenting it, make sure that you really are catering towards those diverse and equitable learning environments. Okay, so the teams may not have worked out in perfect 3s. You could be in a team of 3 or 4. If for some reason you have found yourself in a team of 2, that is fine. Everybody was in a team of 3 or 4 to begin with, but we have had a few dropouts here and there. So if you're just now a team of 2, that will be absolutely fine. If you are on your own, you really can't cover that teamwork criteria, which is criteria 3, and it's crucial that you'll be able to do that so that you can at least pass, or do better than pass, hopefully. And yeah, so if that's the case, you'll need to let your ELA know that straight away. So if you're in a team of 2 and your partner has gone quiet, they're not responding, they're not working away on the assignment, please get in contact with your ELA, and you'll be able to be relocated or reallocated to another team. In the meantime, please don't use this kind of challenge as a reason to stop working on your assignment. These sorts of challenges do happen with teamwork, so it's important that you don't just come to a grinding halt. There's actually lots of parts of this assignment that can be done individually, so you can get started with your research and so on. I do realise that you'll need to be talking around a topic, so it's important that you get onto this very quickly, but don't stop working. Don't just go, make sure you're communicating with the ELA, and perhaps doing some research, and then get yourself into another group very quickly. Okay, you are required to select a contemporary or modern issue. Have a look at the list of the suggestions that are on the assignment sheet. There's quite a lot. There's lots to choose from. If you have a different idea, something that you think is very contemporary and it's not on the list, that will be fine. Just negotiate that with your ELA. Make sure your ELA is happy with your choice, and then you're off and away. Okay, so just going to break down the assignment now in the different parts. So firstly, you've got an introduction of 250 words. That needs to be done as a team. So that needs to be created and discussed amongst yourselves, and it will be the explanation of the contemporary issue that you've chosen, either an educational issue or a social issue. And it will give a brief explanation of the teaching resources that will be covered in the presentation. So obviously you need to talk to each other about what your teaching resources are going to be so that you can explain that in the introduction. That will be presented on the first Prezi presentation slide. Now, I'm not going to go into using Prezi today. That might be something you can talk a little bit more about at your Q&A session, but there's definitely a lot of information available on the assignment page on how to use Prezi. It's pretty user-friendly, and obviously on the website, Prezi, the Prezi website, there will be heaps of information there as well. There are lots of help pages that Prezi do provide. It's also a really good idea to get in and start practicing using Prezi. Like any technologies, it's often just a case of playing around with it and trying things out to see what works and what doesn't. A couple of the activities, like this week's activity, for example, we do suggest that you try Prezi. That way, you won't have any nasty surprises when you're trying to work on your assignment. You would have already had a little bit of a practice and maybe get some help from your ELA as well. Okay, the video. Every person in the team creates their own video. So this is an individual task. Obviously, you can use your partner for feedback, for help, for advice. Make sure that you're sticking to the topic and the issue, and help each other, definitely. But it is your individual responsibility to create a video. That helps explain and expand on the children's understanding of the issue that you have chosen. Make sure that the resources in the presentations cover the themes for the unit that you have explored. So make sure it's relevant to the unit, and have a look at the teaching resources that have already been presented each week in this unit. That might give you some ideas. You can choose to either create your own resource to video, or you can just use a resource that already exists. I would suggest that it would be easier to choose a resource that already exists, as long as it's not too complex. You only have 2 minutes to present it after all. And Yeah, well, obviously it'd be a lot less work choosing a resource that already exists than having to create a new one that is original, depending on how complex it is, I suppose. Again, you can always run that by your ELA. So if you've got an idea for creating your own resource and you want to video that, just run it by your ELA and she should be able to give you some feedback. Okay, so to create the video, you use a recording device. It can be anything from a mobile phone, a tablet, a video camera, a webcam, anything that records visually. And then you'll need to upload your video to YouTube or Vimeo. Again, there are some instructions and resources on the assessment information page. Both of those platforms are pretty easy to use. You'll just need to make sure that you don't go and password protect your videos, because otherwise the ELA won't be able to see them. Unless you have a particular concern with videos being public, then it's possible you could use passwords, but you'll need to make sure those passwords are included on your assignment sheet, on your submission. But I would recommend to not password protect anything. It will make it very difficult if your ELA is having trouble accessing your video on the presentation. I'm not even sure if it will embed. If you have password protected it, you might have a lot of trouble embedding it. We don't want anything to stop or prevent your ELA from being able to see your video and marking it. So make sure everything is tested properly before you submit it, and everything is working as it should be. Okay, the rationale is 350 words. Again, this is individual. So each team member needs to provide a written rationale that explains how their resource can be used to explain and expand children's understanding of the issue in a classroom environment and incorporate these into the presentation. Again, you're working in a team, so it's a great opportunity to get your partner to proofread your rationale, to check over it, to give some input. That will only strengthen your assignment, being able to give each other that kind of feedback. But ultimately, it's your responsibility to write your own rationale for your own video. And that, again, will also be presented on the actual Prezi itself. The conclusion is 250 words, and that's a team effort. You need to write that between the two of you. So make sure that you both do some of that writing, that you're both happy with it, you agree on what's in your conclusion. So you really do need to have your head around each other's resource and each other's rationale to be able to write that conclusion as a team, and to be able to go over or finalise what was covered in the presentation. Again, that needs to be presented on the actual Prezi. There should be a reference list. That's also teamwork. The reference list should include all the resources and materials that you used in the presentation. So all of your sources, you will have in-text citations in any of the writing. So just like a normal essay or report, the reference list needs to reflect any in-text citations that you've included. And you should also include any references to your resources, such as the teaching resource that you videoed. If it wasn't an original resource, then you need to provide the reference for that. And the reference list needs to also be included on the Prezi presentation. Okay, on the document that you'll be submitting, you will include the link to your Prezi. You should also have an appendix. Now, this is a team effort as well. The appendix needs to include all of your evidence of team communication and effort. So 20% of your mark is on your communication and collaboration. So you need to provide the evidence of that, so it can be marked. Now, your communication can happen in Canvas in those discussions that have been set up for you. So every team has a dedicated discussion already. And you could use that to communicate about your whole assignment. That would be fine. And if you're going to do that, then you just will provide a link to that group discussion on the document that you're submitting. If you decide you don't want to use Canvas, that you've got another platform you'd rather use, that's fine, but you will need to copy and paste all of that communication into an appendix. If you're using verbal communication such as Skype or phone or any other way where you're not actually, your communication's not in writing, someone will just need to document what the meeting was about, or what were the main points that were covered in that meeting. It's easier to provide evidence when your communication is in writing though. If you're messaging or emailing each other, if that messaging is evidence of your communication, then it might also be good to include that in your appendix too. Just keep in mind that any communication between you that demonstrates collaboration, teamwork, effort, all of that evidence goes towards your criteria. So it goes towards meeting criterion 3. So it is in your best interest to include any evidence of good, positive teamwork and collaboration. Okay, just to sum up the submission requirements, I know it does seem a little bit complex, but if you have a really good look at the assessment sheet and this PowerPoint as well, you should be able to get your head around it. So the presentation, the Prezi presentation itself, needs to include the introduction, the embedded videos, the rationales, the conclusion, and the reference list. So that all goes into the presentation. Then you need to provide the link to the Prezi on a document, like a Word document. And then that Word document is submitted in Canvas, the same way that you would submit any other assessment. This document should also include the appendix. So your document will have on it, it'll have some kind of title, your name, your team name, the name of your issue, all of the information about your presentation, and it will have the link to the presentation and the appendix. Okay, so the mark that you are awarded for this assignment is a team mark. So you will all get the same mark because it's a team project, except in the case where we have to make a special exception, such as if there's a particular student that hasn't contributed adequately to the team's work. So mostly that's going to be, something fairly exceptional. Hopefully that's not going to happen. But if a student really hasn't pulled their weight at all, the ELA may have to give them a different mark to the rest of the team. But hopefully if everyone's putting in their fair share, that shouldn't have to happen. Okay, the writing style and referencing. So you are able to speak in first person on the video. It is a presentation after all, so you're presenting a resource. It's pretty hard to do that in third person, so it's fine if you want to speak in first person in the video. However, all of the writing must be in third person. So do not write in first person using things like me, I, we, our, or you. And do make sure that wherever you are writing, that you are including in-text citations. So it's still an academic writing piece. So any of your writing has to be academic, it has to draw on academic sources and so on. Okay, just a little bit more about the submission details. You submit it in the normal place that you submit other assignments. On the assignment page, go to assessment 3, team presentation, and it's the same way that you've submitted assessment 1 and 2. Each team member needs to make a submission, so you should all have an identical Word document. So you'll need to do copies of your Word document. Just do a save as, and each of you should have a matching Word document that includes your Prezi URL, your name, your student number, your unit name, the assignment title, the name of team, for example, Group 7, and any other team members who are in your group. So the submission will be the same for each student in the team. Okay, just a quick run over of the criteria. This hopefully will be covered in the Q&A session as well. Criterion 1 is worth 40%. That is knowledge of the issue, including varied interpretations which exist around it. So, so the difference between a pass and the higher level of this criterion is that at the pass level, basic reference has been made to the various interpretations which exist around the issue. So interpretations are just different viewpoints, different opinions around the same issue, getting that kind of analysis and comparison of viewpoints happening around the issue, and obviously supporting that with resources. At the pass level, relevant readings and resources have been drawn upon. In the credit level, it's significant reference has been made to various interpretations, and there are demonstrated links between the readings and resources and the theory. So the theory just meaning the beliefs and opinions around this topic that you've chosen. Distinction, significant analysis is made between the various interpretations, so you've got some contrasting and critiquing of the viewpoints, and again, relevant readings and resources have contributed to a well-synthesized discussion of the issue. At the high level, we're looking at the outstanding ability to evaluate the various biases and stereotypes that impact on public awareness and understanding of the issue. So really critiquing it from society's point of view and from different elements of society, diverse opinions, and a thorough analysis of the understandings around these issues. Critical insights have been put forward, demonstrating an awareness of the broader theoretical frameworks around education. Okay, so that just means really expanding quite widely on what theories and frameworks are around there regarding your issue. Criterion 2 is the structure and organisation of ideas, including a rationale, suitability of video resources, and application to the teaching of the issue. So this is a little bit about presentation. It's about clarity of the rationale, the resources being designed in consideration of the reading. So really making that connection between your resources and the readings that you have studied in this unit, and how they're applied to teaching. So it's really that theory to practice link that nearly always is made towards the end of a unit. So putting what you've learned in theory and being able to put that into practice. At the credit level, the presentation includes detailed rationale. Resources are designed with significant understanding of the issue, and there are demonstrated links to readings and theory and to the applicability to teaching. At the distinction level, the presentation is well considered and thoughtful and highlights the issue within broader theory. So broader theory just means wide research, wide differing opinions, wide ideas around the topic. Resources have been made clear with an understanding of the issue that shows links to broader readings and the applicability to teaching. So again, making that strong link between the theory, what your understandings are around the issue, and being able to apply that to teaching, especially teaching in a diverse and equitable learning environment. At the high distinction level, the presentation is organised with an excellent rationale that positions the resources within a broader theoretical framework. So broader theoretical framework just means going out quite wide, getting, some varied ideas around theories that support or explain your issues, the issue that you are presenting. And there is a high level of discussion and critical insight into the applicability of the presentation to teaching. So really understanding how this would work in terms of using that resource to teach around these issues that you're presenting, or this one issue. Okay. Criterion 3 is all about the teamwork. So it's the communication and integration of ideas, as well as your teamwork in getting the spelling, punctuation, grammar, and referencing right. So because there's 2 of you, or 3, you should absolutely be able to knock out any of those errors. And the grammar, you've got each other as proofreaders, which is fantastic. Okay, so I don't think I will go through all of these. This is fairly standard in terms of grammar, spelling, APA referencing. You've had this similar criterion in the last 2 assignments. The difference here is that you've also got, your communication as well between you to create this assignment. So you've got each other to help with this criterion, well, with all of the criterion really, or the criteria, I should say. So, so really act as a team to bring up the highest quality of assignment that you possibly can. All right, I think that's it for now. Collect up all those questions, put them on the discussion boards, and also bring them along to your Q&A session with your ELA, which will be happening very soon. Okay, thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you in Canvas.